All right. Hello. Hello again. And quick walkthrough here on quick sort of an update on the status of developing Howler 9.1. Excuse me, 9.5, of course. God, you can tell I only had one cup of coffee this morning. What I wanted to let you know is that we're continuing to make some great progress with ever new features being added. You may have seen some of the videos or still images. We're working currently also on a tool to create new types of clouds, maybe volumetric looking clouds. And in fact, you may have seen a video that's that shows some of that with the cloud modeler. Not quite sure yet how that's going to pan out, if it's going to be a tool within the tool, like inside of Howler, a separate tool, or if it's going to be integrated. There are some short videos that you may have seen on our YouTube channel as well. So that's the cloud side. Other elements that we are experimenting with is general photo enhancement, such as the dynamic range. You see some of the images here pertaining to dynamic range detection, calculation, and resulting improvements. So there are some interesting developments here as well to look for. What you see in this particular image actually is a combination of other features we've already talked about a little bit, announcing the erosion feature, the erosion tool that will carve out the gullies and the beginnings of rivers and creeks. There's also the snow caps that is somewhat slope dependent. So if it's kind of a flat area, you do see some white or some snow deposited. If it's a very steep cliff, you might see less of it. And if it's too low of an elevation, it also disappears. And so there is a slope-dependent snow cap, is what I call it. There's also a couple of pictures here. I don't have a whole lot to say about that yet, but we're experimenting with local contrast improvements for pictures with well, the need for local contrast improvement, right? So you may have seen some of the other pictures that we still have around here. This one here, a good example with the erosion. And you see some of the larger erosion features here, and then you see a lot of little ones, and then you see even some steep cliffs. And you know, it's not real, it just looks real. It's that's what it's all about. It's to make it look like it could indeed be you know, seen from a far distance, like a nice little desert mountain scene, Badlands or Rocky Canyon lands, and then the imagination takes it from there, right? So one thing really I wanted to do is perhaps do a little bit of a summary for those who haven't seen some of these features. Of course, on our website you can learn more. At thebest3d.com, you'll see up here erosion, snow caps, the slope, and so on. When you click on this image, you'll see a list of features that we've added or that we are currently adding. This is a little bit of a flashback in time also, with version 8 and version 7 and earlier versions. If you're new to Dog Waffle, and especially the Howler edition, this might be a good summary. There's also a more detailed list up here of main features, or over here. And when you see that, you'll realize that it's a combination of a paint program, a visual effects box, has a lot of special effects filters, and then just a lot of tools. Some of them involving 3D, some of them involving video editing, video work, rotoscoping, time stretch with motion estimation. A lot of different capabilities that just bring it together into a bit more of a toolbox than just a paint program or just a special effects box or just a video editor, right? I mean, we don't do everything, and we don't do everything 100%. There are a couple of shortcomings, but hopefully we can fill in the gaps in a couple of areas where you do need or are looking for special capabilities. Now, when it comes to getting version 9.5, It's not released yet. We think it's going to be sometimes in the middle of August. It might slip a little bit, but that's really depending on how much we want to really put into what will be the official 9.5 release. The thing is, you can pre-order it, and I think today is the last day or the day where it switches to a slightly higher price. We did announce a nice discount for those who already had version 9.0 up to 9.2. That was a free update, 9.1, 9.2. So if you have version 9, you should be at this time at 9.2, and that's as of July 20th. And so today may be the last day to order it at 15% for the upgrade. Eventually it will be $25, but $15 probably the last day today, and then after the 20th, after today's Sunday, it will be $20. Still a great price, we feel. It's really a great discounted offer here. And then eventually it will be 25. Now the full price is also discounted. So if you pre-order version 9.5, you'll see you don't need to pay $89. Just $74 will do. And again on the 20th, that will switch up to 79, probably today. I don't know exactly where the servers are that BMT Micro hosts the transactions on. Maybe on the East Coast, it might be in the cloud. It's hard to predict these days exactly where that time zone is. That's going to make it go, okay, it's no longer the 20th and it switches over to the next day. I suspect if you're in the US all day the 20th Sunday, you can still take advantage of that. But just, if you go to the order form and you click on that, you'll see whether there is indeed still the $74 as in this particular case here. So you get a nice little automatic discount here. And the let's see other things we have. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of a summary final demo. We've seen this image just a little bit earlier, and something similar I wanted to create, and I just did here, with even perhaps adding some lens flare here with a little bright sun, a lot of haze, a lot of mist, kind of a foggy atmosphere or mood. I didn't put anything else in the clouds, like in the sky. There's no clouds there, so that could be further enhanced as well. We could also put some stuff in the foreground with the particle brushes, and there's plenty to talk about that too with new presets, with the evergreens, for instance. And we could put some stuff here in the foreground. But I think what I'll do is I'll focus a little bit more on just how to create this image here to begin with. So let's go and get rid of the particle brushes here. What I want to do is just show a couple of major steps in creating this kind of scenery. Right. Again, this is a scenery where there's a bit of erosion, or it looks like it. When you zoom in far, you might see, well, okay, so it's an approximation, but it's good enough for a quick mood. If let's say you're a travel agent and you need to create a illustration for your new website, or a book on traveling in, let's say, Switzerland, and you want to have some beautiful mountain scenes, or maybe the Rocky Mountains in the US. So there's a lot of times where you either go and look for stock photography, or you call your best friend who has a pilot license and ask him to fly you around that mountain region, right? Who can afford that? And then the other thing is, of course, you could just create your perfect scenery like this in PD Howler. So it starts with a something like this, a very generic noise, sort of a fractal noise area. We can also use the snow caps on it here to add a little bit of a green in the valleys, rocky grays around it, and snow caps on top. But going back to this, what we also do is we use the erosion filter to find where the gullies are forming, right, where the erosion is sort of supposed to carve things out. Now we could just take this as is, or we could say, well, that's too steep a drop, right? These valleys are going to be carved very, very steep. Looking here, you see it's black. and then suddenly it kind of goes down. This is the amount of carving out that we want from those rivers and the creeks. And so you might want to actually filter that a little bit to blur it, or to do some light diffusion. Let me zoom in so we can see what's happening there. If I do the filter photographic light diffusion, and I adjust this this radius a little bit, this is how far the reach of that light diffusion is. So the bright pixels are kind of branching out into the neighborhood of the surrounding area where the darker pixels are. And so you can adjust here how much that goes, how far that goes, and that of course will in turn then perhaps reduce the sudden drop, the intensity by which this erosion is happening. All right, so if we, for instance, if we look at, let's OK this one and store that, and then do a side-by-side comparison. We have this one, and we have this one. This is the original, and then this one is a little bit subdued here. So what I'm going to do is zoom into showing the difference of what the elevation map actually does. I'm going to go to transform, puppy ray. Let's do this faster with the GPU. Now this one's very high elevation, so I'm going to go and reduce this a little bit. But you can see here, these are kind of veins. Maybe I can enable the sky. I got that already. And I'm very up high in, I need to adjust here so that I can see a little bit. Oh, and I have a very wide angle. I must have done some playing around. Nope, this is a regular angle, that's good. So what you can see is that the carvings we have here, if I render this in a little bit better quality, the carvings are very sudden. There's either, you know, it's flat and then suddenly there's a drop up. And of course, if we invert it, that's really what we're talking about. If we take this image, or this one, that's the original, if we invert it, that's really a better indication. Let's go there. That's a better indication of what really the erosion will do, right? And so let's store that one so we can work with this. And take this one that has the, you know, by comparison with this has the blurriness to it, or not the blurriness, but the light diffusion added. Let's go and invert that and store that as well. So now we have those two images just to compare and see what the impact is when we did the, what was that? This filter here with the photographic collection, the light diffusion, right? So what I'll do is I'll render the there it is, the puppy ray GPU, and so now you see what the carvings look like, and you can fly over that, you can look at it from different angles, and so that's one. Let's go make it perhaps final render, and okay that, and then store this image, right? And then I'm gonna go, so I think that was this one, and I'm gonna go with the original, or this version here, and yeah, so this one here, and do the same, and it'll use the same angle, same position, same quality on the render, and so we have a render that we can really compare side by side now. Store this one. So we have this and we have that. So you can see there's a bit of a difference here in how the erosion looks. Here, this one is the one that came from the unmodified without the light diffusion. So it's a bit more of a sudden drop. It's a little bit harsher looking, a little bit more rough on the surface, right? Whereas this one has a bit more rounded corners. You can see, look at some of the details here, how it kind of flushes it away, and that's because of that light diffusion that we added. So the difference between this and this is that this one we used the dark diffusion, or it was light diffusion before we inverted it. You could also actually use the dark diffusion and get a similar effect. So this one here is a bit of a sudden drop. This one here, that's this one, and then this one here is a little bit more of a soft result. And so that's really the idea about this all, is that you can play with, you know, one filter that does the initial carving, but don't necessarily think that you're stuck with just that. You can make some changes to it in many different ways, even just with one filter, such as the light diffusion. On something like this, even after the rendering is done, you can add some more of that to perhaps, you know, add this photographic or hazy mist look to it, right? So let's go flashback here and kind of take this step by step. Initially, I'll start with this, right? So this we don't need anymore. This we don't need. These we can redo anyway. So we'll start with this. In fact, let me go for the full size and where is it? There, creates new image. There you go. So that's the initial image. I don't know why I have an alpha channel, sort of a selection mask with the marching ants around here. I'm going to click that, select it, right? Clear it rather, clear alpha. So here it is. It's not seamless. I might want to make this seamless, but if I forgot, it's probably not the end of the world. We can probably just peek in a different direction. I'm going to be probably somewhere around here looking that way, or whichever way it is. We can arrange the camera position so that we are not right in front of where that seam is, and then suddenly we see a sudden wall standing in front of us. We can always look in a different direction. But of course, ideally, what you do is you make this image seamless. Now, how did we create this image in the first place? Let's go to Filter, Render, Plasma Noise. That's basically the essence of getting started with some sort of an interesting terrain map. This is a very simple step. We could do something even more interesting by combining this with another one with bigger features. You know, quite often in mountain scenes you have some very major big features, and then there are a couple of very detailed small features. So let's go and store this one and do the same, use the same filter, render, plasma noise again, but this time with bigger features, and see if we can get it to a point where we have kind of a mountain peak like this. This is good. Lucky me here. So I'm gonna go and make this one seamless also. Well, see, that of course kills it sometimes. Oh, that's a good one. Let's keep this. So we have a nice major ridge here, a peak, fairly big dimensions in the center, and let's go store that and then compare to the other one with the smaller features. All right, so we got this. Here's the one with the smaller features. Here's the one with the bigger features. What I'd like to do is kind of make this one dominant and then add this one to it, but you know, add it or multiply it or reduce, subtract it. We'll have to see what works best. One thing we can do is perhaps load this one in the swap image, and this one is in the main image. So we'll put this one. Let's go to the swap image here, load this one into it, switch back to the main image, and we have this one here. Now we can do a couple of things. We can combine one with the other in a variety of ways. You know, we could just click here to see what the combination does, right click on this to say in what way we want to combine them, and that could be a divide, it could be a multiply, it could be a subtractive, many different effects coming out of that. Let's go and undo this, uncheck that, and actually do a different type, which is a displacement. Displacing one against the other will often give some extra features that sometimes you would call marble textures or ridges. I find sometimes doing the difference between the two might be a really interesting feature. So let's go fill the combine with alpha and do a subtractive or difference, and that often will bring out some nice big rivers. See this one here? That looks just like a perfect deep valley river. And so what you could do is perhaps adjust how much of that, you know, use the interactive undo if you want none of it or all of it or something in between. There, let's go settle for this and keep that as stored image. And then, I don't know, maybe we still need a little bit more of the fine detail. Put that on top and then undo with the interactive undo, and you get yet another type of combination. So, you know, you get a lot of experimental, let's try this, let's just, you know, get lost in experimenting with this. Let's go and store this, or maybe do a dynamic range. There you go. So we now have some nice big peaks and a couple of deep valleys. and it's time to add some more erosion to that. Let's store this one here as a good starting or middle point. These we can minimize, probably won't need these for a while. One thing I'll do is I'll do a quick render to see what that looks like. If I transform here, and we could use the CPU version or the GPU version. Be careful with the GPU. If you ask it to render too much, it could take too long. The driver could time out. There's that limitation with the GPU. So if you have the settings here for final render, don't go into final render unless you have first backed up all of the images you need and saved them on disk, because you could see the end of the graphics card, time out, and then the program being reset by Windows. So I would recommend perhaps if you want to be on the safe side, use the CPU version for your final render. But here's also the changes you can make on the elevation, and let's see, what do we have in terms of the river? Oh yeah, here's here's the part that's not repeating too nicely because it's not seamless. Yeah, you can see it right there. But that's okay. We'll just place the camera a little bit beyond that. Let's adjust global illumination a little bit, get more brightness here, and then see if we can find where that river. There it is. I think we have some carvings. There's some deep valley here. Let's make it a little bit bigger and position our camera in such a way that we are a little bit above it. So there you go. In fact, we can then look down and see where the big valleys are. Now actually I'm inverted here. The picture is upside down because I have the dark parts here. All right, dark parts. No, actually that's it. That should be the deeper. Maybe I can adjust a little bit with the adjust filter here, curves, and make it a little bit more pronounced on the brights. Right, extend that and then keep it darker also here, so you get kind of steeper drops, and that will be kind of almost a plateau here, almost a sort of a monolithic feature at higher elevations. So let's go store that as yet another threshold or milestone. So now let's go render this one more time just to get a quick idea of what that looks like so far. And we do have some interesting features. See, now with steeper cliffs here, and we could almost see some sort of a monument valley developing here in the early stages a couple of million years ago when it was more of a canyon land still. Now, to make this even more interesting, of course, we need some more detailed erosion. So to do that, what I will do is use the erosion filter. Now we could actually do that in a couple of places. This time I'll actually call it this. The idea is to get to this point here, to create this kind of erosion map from the this one here, right? So what we'll do is we load this image and then use the filter under the stylize tool collection here. We'll use the erosion filter, right? And that erosion filter will figure out where things get eroded if it rains on it. And you can add more rainfall here and see how that plays into a more impressive set of carvings. Let's use that, okay? So we have a lot of rivers. You see here the main gullies kind of coming together into the deeper parts of the valley. Here at the top, where it's kind of the monolithic area, it quite doesn't know which way to go. But the thing, of course, we want to do is invert that, or we'll subtract that from the other one. So the idea is to now use this in some way or another. Let's say, for instance, you store this to have a little snapshot, and we go back to the original image. You could do a little interactive undo to see where those things actually match, right? So you could find, yeah, here's the peaks, and then here are the valleys, and that's where all those rivers and creeks kind of flow into the deep part. And so that's a good way to actually create another type of very fascinating, futuristic looking mountain scenes, and that's if you go and transform and render that, and then perhaps reduce a little bit on that extrusion here. Perhaps I don't know, reduce the pre-filter and get all sorts of you know, something that evokes a little bit more of like a Bryce Canyon look. Test a little bit more on the rendering here. So other types of landscapes, that's for sure. Let's go back to the image here and now actually use this. And one way to use this image as an erosion out of this one, or even out of the prior one here, is to use this one in a subtractive mode, right? Because basically what we have are those bright parts represent the carvings where the valley needs to go down deeper. And as an elevation map, what's bright is usually doing just the opposite. It's going up higher. So what we need to do is subtract this, okay? Or you could do something like this. You could invert it and then multiply it, right? Or do some other types of operation. There's a variety of ways to combine this with this. Let's do that. Let's use this and then simply subtract this one from it. So let's load this into the main image and then load this row. Right click on, click on this little pull down menu and find the combined part. There you go. And then subtract it. Okay. So now you have subtracted the bright parts of this erosion map, and you end up getting those deeper carvings into the already deeper valleys. So I don't know if you can see this, but to me that looks like totally 3D now. You have an elevation map with higher elevations here, where it's kind of a light gray to bright, almost white, and then it falls down. Now you might say it falls down too quickly. It might need a little bit of reduction on how much it falls down. So you can do this interactive undo now again and say, you know, before the erosion was applied or subtracted, we had this image. Afterwards, we have this. How about we do sort of a consensus, right? It's a democracy here. Let's vote in between here. Hands up, hands down, thumbs up, thumbs down. Let's go something like this. And what you'll do is you'll experiment with these, and for each of those different amounts, perhaps do a render quickly on the puppy ray to see whether that's too much or not enough yet. Another thing you might also do is, first of all, save this or store it. And again, this doesn't save it in on hard drive, just in memory. But it's very convenient and helps in the workflow to do this quickly. So one thing you could also do now is do a little bit more of that photographic filter that we call the light diffusion. And that's either to bring more dominance to the bright parts again, or to the contrary, click on the dark diffusion and have the deep valleys kind of carve out even more. So you have a bit more of erosion happening wherever it's already eroding through the carvings here. You kind of make it go down even more. Careful with that, but that's perhaps also one you can even once again do a little bit of interactive undo to say, yes, okay, I want some of it, but not quite that much. And so let's see what that does. Now we have yet another elevation map here with the carvings in it, right? Remember, this started like this. Actually, it didn't start like that. It started way different, something like this. Eventually we did a difference and we got some bigger carvings out here of main rivers, and we could have adjusted the dynamic range or adjusted the values perhaps with a little bit more contrast, or adjust the gamma, all sorts of different ways to get to yet other types of valleys. I mean, here you can see if it's all black, it's going to be the deeper valley, deeper parts, kind of a big wide valley, maybe filled with greens and lush eroding, vegetation. So many different ways, but now we are working with this one. Let's have a look at what that looks like when we do our rendering in Puppy Ray. So let's go like this. Puppy Ray again on the GPU, it's faster. Let's go and take a look at some areas that look particularly good. Now, one way to make it good too is to work with the light so it's not looking too flat. Right, I mean that's a very important part. One thing I'm going to do is change the camera angle a little bit. Let's go on a slightly faster preview speed and change the angle to be a little bit more zoomed in, but then also looking up towards the horizon and moving down a little bit, not too much. Okay, And I don't know, maybe I need to adjust the angle a little bit this way too, to see the horizon pretty much flat. I can adjust the level of the fog so it comes closer and we actually see even less into the distance. Again, be careful with that. That could, depending on how fast or how slow your graphics card is, that could cause it to time out on the driver. And Windows doesn't like that after 2 or 3 seconds. If it takes too long, it may reset the program. Or rather the graphics driver, which in turn resets the program. But anyway, so we have this. One thing to work on is the light. Let's adjust the light so we have some long shadows. Right, I'm using the right button here. You can position it differently so it draws the shadows from different angles, from different direction. And let's see if we can get something like this here. There. Some low light source will create some long shadows and make the carvings visible even more. So make sure you don't give too much of that flooding skylight. Give it the right mood or color if you need. This one, the first one by default, is a little bit of a bluish tint. That's great. And so, oh, and we have the sky clouds as well. So let's not dismiss that. And so let's say we want to have something like this. Let's render it at slightly better quality. We're not quite done yet though, but we certainly have a good impression here of initial mountain scene features. Look at that, some nice valleys starting to prop up and some interesting things. That's the thing, is that it's, you know, it's interesting looking. The brain is stimulated here. Happy, right? We want to look at something that's making us think. We see some sort of a, you know, the Three Sisters in Monument Valley, or some other strange formations there. And there's a lot that contributes to that. There's the lighting, the shadows, the big carvings, the big major features of the mountain scene, the smaller features, all these little erosion gullies. All of that contributes to a statement in our brain saying, "Yep, that looks realistic. That looks good." So what else can we do? Well, there's vegetation usually, unless we're on planet Mars, and even there, the debate is still open. There is probably going to be some erosion, and we see this one here as an example. So I'm going to go back to this one, and we could have done the erosion map actually, I mean the color map even before the erosion map, so it doesn't really matter too much. Let's use this one, why not? And then add yet another filter that's new in 9.5. It's called the slope shading. It's really a slope coloring. It's really a coloring with the slope being considered. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit in an area where there's quite a bit of a slope, maybe up here, where you see a bright level and a dark level, and probably some steep contrast, meaning sudden drops or cliffs or something like that. Like this area here might have some interesting things to tell us about it. So I'm going to go to filter now, artistic, no, not artistic, stylize, slope shading, and what you see is you can adjust here the amount of snow you get, and you can adjust here how high the vegetation is growing, and anything in between is the gray of the rocks. Now you don't have to have it gray necessarily. You can change the color of that if you like a bit more of a bluish tint to it. You know, some granite might look a little bit more bluish, but you can also add texture, paper texture, or, you know, stripes of some sort, or sediment, simulated sediments, all sorts of different ways to make it look even more interesting. I'm gonna go stay on the blue theme, but a little bit more into a less saturated blue and kind of gray again. And then we have the white. Now there is also this moving part to that, so we can add some shading to kind of get a better, this kind of bakes the shading into it. That's actually interesting for game developers if they want to have a bit of a shaded appearance to that. But I'm going to let that shading happen later in the final render. So here let's focus just on the coloring, but I want to add some smoothing, the sample radius, intensity. So there are a couple of parameters you can play with here. Let's do 1, let's do 2, let's do 3, and you can see how the snow kind of melts over time here, depending on how you adjust this parameter. You can also see the samples that may adjust the quality or the opacity, the pack of the snow, you know, kind of the how much it clumps together. There's a smoothing also. This one I like if you want to show late winter, early spring snow, where it's kind of it's either fully there or totally gone. There's kind of no middle ground. And then if you increase the smoothing, it's very cold December to January snow, and it's definitely kind of spreading into some areas where normally it might not grab a hold of the rocks to stay on. It has a little bit more of a very fresh snow look to it. Hasn't melted yet, hasn't compacted, and so all of these parameters you can use to your delight and play with your imagination here to see what you get by adjusting these parameters a little bit. Let's try 3, let's try 11. Gosh, this is so beautiful. I mean, there's really places here to get lost for hours and hours of just experimenting and imagining, but then most importantly to also actually make it so, right? Let's click OK and store that. This is now what we call the color map, or the map of the coloring that we will have on our terrains. And as you can see now, it's not just all over white where the snow is. There are some parts where the gullies are very steep, and that means you know, in these areas, let me highlight that with a little drawing. After all, it's a paint program. You should be able to paint here. So we have some gullies here, and that's essentially indicating that even though the snow does go fairly deep here, some parts are either too deep or too steep. And if the slope is very steep, the snow will not catch on it, and that's why we call it the slope shader. So that adds another level of visual realism to it as well. So that map we need to load into the swap image, right? So copy that to the swap image. Then we can go back to this. In the main image, we have the elevation map. You can see here that we are on the main image. If you want to switch over, boom, you can see now we're on the swap image. Switch back. Right. Think of the swap image as the background of your canvas, right? The back side of, flip side of your. If you take a canvas, like if you paint in real or paint on draw on a sheet of paper, turn it around. Wow, you don't know, but there's another side to it. Another one. You paid for one, but you got two sides. You can actually paint on that one too, and that's sometimes where the real hidden treasure painting is, right? What we call it is a swap image, because you kind of swap between the two, and you can have the color map here. You can have the elevation map over here, and I think we're ready for another test render here. Let's go to transform, just a quick one first with the GPU, and you can see now it's getting even more interesting looking, right? That same scene we had earlier now still has some great little details and shading and carvings, but also some snow caps and green down in the lower elevation, some fields, and that's really where it's just starting to become really beautiful. So one thing I'm going to do now is say let's redo the whole thing, but from the CPU side, so we don't have to fear the GPU's tempers. And so let's go Puppy Ray CPU, and this one has its own you know, memory of the parameters stored, so we may need to try this again with different parameters, different elevation, move the light source somewhere else, there in the far right, adjust the fog to be closer. Let's see the light, the angle. Oh, we don't have a shortcut on that, but we can see that here on the more. You can change the zoom to 2 or 1. That's very wide. That's a little bit too much. Let's keep it at 2, or even actually higher. Maybe that's what we really needed. There you go. And then we can also adjust a little bit on which way we want to look at this. It's not going to be actually the exact same view as we had on the GPU. I don't think we have that coordination quite yet, but that could be coming perhaps as an idea. You know, there's always something else to put on the to-do list, to have perhaps the same parameters that we have here kind of saved in a file, and then be able to load them from the GPU side. Now here's an interesting thought, right? So let's see, maybe we'll have that in a future update. And then so here I'm gonna go and see what that looks like if I do a render. This is the ray traced version now, and oh wait, this is way slow because I'm on the beyond final render quality. There is a final render and it's never done. So we might go to the one that we here call hours would seem like days, because it could take hours to render if it's a very big rendered scene. So let's go and render this one here as a quick test. Yep, not quite yet. Getting there, but not quite yet. So let's go and move around perhaps this way. Let's move the light source to make sure we have long shadows, reduce the intensity of the ambient, the sky, global illumination. There's a couple of other parameters you can play with here. Let's go and set the render quality to medium. I think we can wait for that. And so here's a new one. And so here you go. You know, that's basically the idea of working with these new features, is to find your sweet spot for the particular parameter combinations, right? Find the sweet spot on the angle of the camera, find the sweet spot based on what you want. You know, everybody has their own vision on what the perfect scene is. And perhaps you'll be in need of a scene where you pretend you're flying an airplane and you want to actually kind of see at an angle with a tilt there, right? How far this thing is. Let's go perhaps up this. Let's go zoom it up. Let's go bring it down. I think we need to increase the elevation on this one a little bit. There you go. The major features were not quite scaled up. There you go. Actually, no, you know what? I think I'm using the wrong one. I'm actually using this one already as the base image. I need to go back to this one, not this one. This one, there you go. That's the image I need to start from, right? We got the coloring. See here we can combine the color map and the swap in the swap image with the elevation map. So that's the one we use. Okay, so now let's go render, and it will this time remember the parameters we just had in the CPU version of PuppyRay. There you go. That's a bit more what I was looking for. So now we have something like this. Maybe not quite that much on the elevation. There you go. The fog could be a little bit farther out. And we could have it even farther out than that, so we see more of the sky. So let's go like this, and then let's go and give ourselves a little bit closer, get ourselves a little bit closer to the landscape here. Let's go and move this the light source. That's this one here. Move that a little bit further back. And reduce perhaps the intensity of it, or definitely increase the elevation, or control the elevation so we have those nice long shadows, and add a little bit of this. I don't know where the light needs to be, maybe on the right side. Yeah, I like that. That's better. There you go. So now let's do a quick render on that. Medium quality is probably good. Still at this point we're not quite done yet, I sense, but let's go ray trace that. And yeah, it looks like we have the edge of the terrain here. We didn't turn it seamless yet, so that's obviously going to be a factor to consider when it comes time to choosing our final camera angle. Unless we change, of course, where the we change the terrain into a seamless texture. If we change the texture to seamless, then we have a bit more liberty as to where we want to place our camera. So let's go something like this here. We could possibly change the angle of the zoom back down to 2, a bit more of a wide angle look that way. And yeah, I think we have some nice features here in the terrain. Okay, and let's go render that. So I hope this will give you a good idea of some of the tools coming with 9.5. It's really becoming more and more of a tool program with way more than just painting. It's got some ray traced rendering with global illumination, and of course animation too. You can animate through that and create a little flyover. So one thing I'll do is I'll actually go and reduce the size just for the sake of brevity here to make it a little bit smaller. I'm gonna or faster. I'm going to undo. There you go. I'm going to resample this down. Oh, and I'll make it seamless also. So that one will probably have a nice overlap. Let's remember the numbers because we need to do that also on the swap image. So here's 15% seamless. Okay, then let's switch to this. That one is not seamless yet. And you can see the disparity, it's not overlapping anymore, right? Because the seamless shifts it a little bit. So let's go and make this one seamless. Make seamless at the same numbers. What was it? 15 and 15. There you go. And so that should match now, where we do have the elevation and the coloring is corresponding just nicely here. I don't know if we have the right let's go back to default, the multiply mode. There you go. So that's a good way to see that the images match again. And now we can go and make sure we store those. We might need to go back to those. So let's store this image and switch to that swap image and store that one as well. So we have these two here. Boy, we're having a lot of stored images here. Maybe it's time to clean this up a little bit. Let's go get rid of some of these. I'm sure I'm going to regret having done that, but this is only for demonstration. So I'm going to stay on, this is in the swap image, that's for the coloring. Let's go back to the main image, that's for the elevation. And now I'm going to resample this whole thing here. I'm going to say resample down to a smaller resolution. I'm going to go half size, 640 by 360. And then that way it's going to go a little bit faster to actually render, and of course render each frame of the animation. That's really the idea. In fact, I'm going to make it even smaller than that. I'm going to resample it down to 270p. So what's that, 480 or something like that on the horizontal times 270 on the vertical, and there you go. Now this doesn't just resample the swap image, it also resamples, I mean the main image, it also resamples the swap image. So both of these are done, and we can now go and create an animation. And to create an animation, let's say we want 200 frames, 222 because we're lazy. Let's go and store that animation because we might want to get back to that. Store it on disk, and so we have an animation here that is not moving yet, right? And so now that's what we are about to fix. We're going to move through that with the filter, transform, puppy ray. This time I'll go with the GPU version again, because that one just renders so much faster. And for a small image like this, doing a quick animation like that is definitely going to be most likely not going to be a problem. So let's adjust our positions. Let's make sure we clear, if we had any earlier animations, let's clear the keyframes there. That's this one here, clear keys. And then go do a quick test of what the animation should look like. Right? So what we'll do is we'll change the position so the camera kind of flies over that. Really, this is just to demonstrate the concept of creating a little bit of an animation that might perhaps go into a longer scene or a video of some sort. Or it might be something like where we pan around and then fly into it, right? So let's say initially like this scene, there you go. And then into the animation about 1/3, we will go down, looking this way. And then another third, we will go looking this way and also start moving. So we need to change the camera position this way, maybe a little bit more sideways. There. And then finally, I think we'll have the camera kind of head in the direction in which we're moving. Something like that. And blast forward really fast. Mach speed here. Okay. Might also want to go down a little bit, almost crash into this, and then perhaps look up, and we will have the lighting. Which way is the lighting coming from? What is the lighting like? So we'll fly into this direction here, keyframe that. So we now have a little animation that does this. And we also may want to change this to have interpolation, have the pre-filter at about 0.3 or 4. Keep it reasonable so it's not too blocky in appearance, unless that's the style you seek. Let's keyframe that again. And so now let's go for the higher quality. Let's do a final render. There you go. And we're ready to render this as an animation. So click on animate. Current settings are fine. Let's do it. Let's just go and play that. So it's now rendering your animation. And what we'll do next is really perhaps crop this one more time and add a little bit of animated, I don't know, lens flares or a sun, you know, some big bright spot somewhere. So thanks for watching. This is, of course, plenty of things to remember and try and experiment. I hope you can take advantage of the pre-ordering specials that we are still running for a couple of more weeks. Thank you to everybody who has already pre-ordered. Very much appreciated. We sure need the funds to keep going, and this really helps. And what we will probably try, we probably will be going into some sort of a public beta for those who have pre-ordered, so you may get a sneak peek, early access to it. Not quite sure yet when and how much already will be in it. It might be that there are still a few more surprises after the version that we may build in between, but it's also kind of just a discussion we're having at this point, and time being of the essence, we also don't want to waste too much time in going through that process if later we have to go through it again with the final build. So we're still kind of debating what exactly we want to do here. It's just one of the very enthusiastic possibilities. And so much for that. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of the day, wherever that might be, whatever time zone. And thanks for waffling and for howling.